now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. I was on Twitter or X a couple of weeks ago when a very prominent YouTuber who was a host of a pop culture channel posted a tweet where he stated that comic book YouTube videos and videos about the comic book industry get low views on his channel. Now, this very prominent pop culture YouTuber has over 6-figure subs and gets thousands of views on a video. However, he was complaining that whenever he does videos on the comic book industry or talks about comic books, those videos do extremely poorly. And they do so poorly that he has to supplement that video with another video about something in pop culture or entertainment in order to get the views that will allow him to be able to profit from the content that he makes on YouTube. Now, this is something I thought I was having a problem with all by myself, and I thought I was the only one having problems going out here whenever I would post comic book videos or videos talking about the comic book industry, because on this channel, whenever I go out here and post a video on comic books or the comic book industry, those videos get the lowest amount of views on any content on this channel. Usually, if I go out here and I post a comic review video, that video will barely get under 100 views. And whenever I do videos about the comic book industry, usually those videos get barely under 300 to 500 views. However, if I do a video talking about a celebrity, or I do a video talking about black issues in the black community, or I do a video on men's issues, or I do a video on relationships, or any video talking about general news such as the migrant crisis, those videos will go out and explode and get anywhere from 500 to 3,000 to 4,000 views in a day. So I know what this prominent pop culture YouTuber is talking about is true. And I know that if this is the case as related to comic books and the comic book industry, the industry is in a very, very dangerous place, because if you have it where people are starting to become indifferent to comic book videos and comic book industry videos, that means that the comic book industry is going from life support to heading towards a flat line. Now, one of the things you do not want to happen in the entertainment industry is for there to be indifference, because indifference in the entertainment industry is the kiss of death. And indifference is the kiss of death because that means that the audience at this point no longer cares. And if the audience no longer cares, that means that the audience is basically moved on. And when the audience moves on, that means your entire business is dead at that point. Because in entertainment, what you want to do is get a reaction, whether it be positive or negative, and those reactions are the reason that show that the audience cares. And if you don't have an audience that cares, what happens to your business is that that audience is just, again, has moved on, and you're not going to be able to make any money. Now, Comics YouTube had a really big period from about, I say, 2016 to about 2021, when we had the all new, all different Marvel, and we had a lot of pop culture channels complaining about the social justice warriors who were coming into places like Marvel Comics and DC Comics and many other companies and promoting their far left social justice agenda. And as many channels came up complaining about how bad comics were, you had a lot of people out here talking about how they were going to provide alternatives to mainstream comics with their independent crowd-funded comics. But what's happening now is that people on YouTube are not watching that content. And one of the reasons why people aren't watching that content is because most of the people who used to watch that content are not really seeing any sort of progress as related to the comic book industry. And because they're not seeing anything change as related to the comic book industry, what's happening is that people are just realizing that nothing is going to change, and they're just deciding to put a period as related to their love of comics and move on. So most people, they were hoping that everything as related to movements like Comicsgate would lead to some serious change, and they were hoping that the rise of these independent creators would lead to a change in content. And some created a covert contract where they believed that if they complained about comics, companies like Marvel and DC would hear them and want to go out here and try to make their content more appealing to these longtime customers. However, in the last 5 years, most people, all they have seen is many of these crowdfunded comics come and go, and they've seen the quality of companies, of the products at Marvel and DC Comics not change. And because they have not seen the quality of the products at Marvel and DC change in a significant manner, what has happened is people are just tired of hearing the same content over and over again, complaining about how bad the comic book industry is, complaining about the same bad creators who are a part of social justice narratives and whisper networks. They are just tired of hearing about all of the nonsense because they don't see anything on the pages of these comics changing. So what most people have done is they just hear these comic YouTube videos as white noise, and they no longer really acknowledge what's going on in these comics, and they don't really care at this point because it's the same video over and over again. And that's where it becomes the definition of insanity, because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And as people have complained about the state of the comic book industry on YouTube for the last 5 years, what has happened is that people have gotten tired of hearing all of the complaints, because even though you have complained to the people at Marvel and DC about the quality of their products, nothing is changing over at Marvel and DC. So since people see that nothing is changing, even though they have made complaints about the product, what they're deciding to do is vote with their wallet. And as they vote with their wallet, the situation at comic shops has gotten extremely dire, because right here in New York, we lost Jim Hanley's Universe, which was a staple of comics in Midtown Manhattan for over 30 years. And we've lost a whole hundreds of comic shops, but nobody really is serious about making change. And sadly, when you have a situation like this, again, this is where people throw up their hands, because they realize that the situation is run by a group of pathetic people, a bunch of pathetic people who just refuse to change. And again, when it comes to pathetic individuals, a pathetic individual in a case where they know they have a problem but refuse to change, what people do in that case is they just start becoming indifferent to that person's complaints, and they come indifferent to their complaints because they see that this person does not want to get their stuff together, even though you have told them what the problem is and how to solve it. And since this person refuses to listen to you or your suggestions, what you people do when they realize they're dealing with a pathetic person who just when you tell them what's wrong and they refuse to change, what people do is change how they deal with that individual, and they change how they deal with that individual by walking away from them. And that's what many longtime fans like myself of the comic book industry have been doing as related to mainstream comics. We realize nothing is going to change about the business, so we're just going to again put a period as related to the mainstream comics and move on to other interests. Moreover, when it comes to the independent comic book market that's crowdfunded, yeah, I'll go out here and buy comics that I think that are good. I'll do reviews of those comics that try to help those creators. But if I don't see, again, people wanting to make serious change, then I'm just, again, going to put a period at the end of things and just move on. That's what people have been doing, and this is why you're seeing people not watching these comic YouTube videos, because they get tired of hearing the same thing over and over again, because there comes a point in a person's life where they have to realize that, okay, this person, I've talked to them, I've told them what I want, I've told them what I would like them to do, but this individual refuses to listen and acknowledge the problems that they have with their product. Moreover, they refuse to acknowledge that their industry is in bad shape, and since they have no interest or desire in trying to get it together, what people do is get their money together and move on to other hobbies. That's what's been happening with as related to pop culture, and this is why you're seeing a lot of pop culture items winding up on clearance in places like Ollie's as related to Marvel Legends, and why you're seeing things like comic shops close. You're seeing all of this happen because the entire industry is tone deaf, and people are just tired of trying to talk to people. Moreover, people are just tired of listening to the complaints, and that's where the industry is in a really bad place, because again, indifference is the kiss of death for an entertainment business, and when people become indifferent, that's when people stop caring, and when they stop caring, that's when they stop looking to listen to anything as related to the problems in a business, because if the business owners don't want to improve their product, what people will do is go out here and seek out other products that will go out here and give them the entertainment value for their dollar, and they will go out here and choose to pick those products because they feel like they're getting the value that they want, and they don't have to sit here and waste time listening to complaints. And that is the thing that the comic book industry doesn't understand, that time is a precious thing, and time is something people can't get back. And if people are spending time to watch videos about people complaining about the comic book industry, yeah, they care. But when people start seeing that nothing is going to change, what they're going to do is start valuing their time and say, okay, my time is precious, and I don't want to waste my time on a group of people who truly do not care about their business and do not respect my money or respect my time. And what people do in these cases is say, okay, I love comics, I love the medium of comics, but it's clear that the publishers don't want to make the comics that I want, so I'm going to put a period at the end of things and move on to other parts of my life. And that's sadly what's happening now with Comics YouTube. Is that they know people are starting to just become indifferent, and all of the complaining is becoming white noise to them. So those videos, they don't get the views that they used to on many of the popular channels. And I know with my own channel, I'm barely getting, again, 100 views on comic reviews and videos on comics. So I know that the whole situation with comics is that we are in the end times for comics, and it's sadly due to the fact that you have people in the industry who have become disconnected and detached and don't see the real how badly the situation is, because recently at New York Comic Con they had the worst show of their entire history. I mean, this show has been going on for over 10 years, and they have the worst show in their history. And again, everything is showing that the industry is in its final stages, and sadly, people just don't see it because they've become indifferent to it. And again, when you have indifference as related to a business, indifference is the kiss of death for that business. And comics have one foot in the grave, one in the banana peel, because if you can't get people to watch content on comics or go to comic shops or go to Comic-Cons, then we are at the point where the comics medium is basically in the final stages as related to this state of the industry. Again, we have a real serious problem, and sadly, no one wants to go out here and make changes. And again, since there's no hope of anything changing, that's why people have just gone out here and decided to move on with their lives. And as they move on, we are seeing people, again, moving past comics. And this should be the thing that really terrifies comic fans, because if people move on from comics, then there won't be anybody to enjoy comics in the future. So if you want to pick up my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic on Lulu.com right now in paperback. And if you want to pick up my first digital comic, A Steam No Good Deed, you can find that comic on Kindle for 99 cents right now. And if you want to pick up some of my action-packed fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my Black sorority novel, The Thetas, or my vampire novel, Eternal Night, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
You think you've seen scares? Get ready for the horror of the hyena woman.
Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.